Let's talk about clinical attachment in NHS. So, before we dive into it, hi, I am Ashrita Singh. I am an international medical graduate from India. I've just recently cleared my Plab 1 and Plab 2. My Plab 2 was in November last year, and now I'm currently waiting registration by the GMC. This is my second video on the Plab series. If you want, you can check out my first video. It is all about how to study for Plab 1, what are the resources available. Now, in today's video, we are going to be talking about what is clinical attachment, how do we get a clinical attachment, is a clinical attachment necessary to get a job in the NHS, and number 4, what all should we be doing in our clinical attachment. So I did happen to get 2 clinical attachments, both of them were unpaid, so I thought why not share with you guys how to get a clinical attachment and what all should be done in one. What is a clinical attachment? A clinical attachment is an unpaid period of time where we either observe or follow around a consultant and their team to try and understand how the system in the UK works. It is a way for you to get more experience in the NHS because it is a lot different than how our hospitals work. They have a lot more guidelines which they have to follow. So to try and understand that, a clinical attachment is necessary. And okay, now how do we get a clinical attachment? That's the number one question, isn't it? How do we get a clinical attachment? So, to get a clinical attachment, the easiest way possible is there are certain trusts which are offering free clinical attachments. Trusts offer free clinical attachments. Do hit up the consultants here. How do you email the consultants? You want to email the consultants and not the HR department of the hospital. So what do? You go on Google and you search consulting directory and write the name of the trust that you're looking for. It will show you all the emails and names of the consultants and you can email them. I would recommend contacting as many consultants as possible. That is the number one method. What is the number 2 method for getting attachment? The number 2 method is you go on track jobs or NHS jobs and you see these advertisements for different jobs, and when you know that these trusts are offering these attachments, you can just look. The emails of the consultants will be given below the job. You can try emailing those consultants as well, and that should help you as well. How long should a clinical attachment be? Ideally, a clinical attachment should be somewhere from around 2 weeks to 4 weeks. Sometimes some trusts even offer 6 weeks, but an ideal clinical attachment should be around 4 weeks time. You should try and get a clinical attachment in the department that you are interested in. For example, if you wish to pursue surgery, you should try and get a clinical attachment in that subject. If you want psychiatry, then vice versa, because you want experience in the subject that you're interested in. In UK, it is called commitment to speciality. So you want to show how committed you are to that speciality by doing, extra work in that speciality, which an example of which would be a clinical attachment. The benefits of clinical attachment. What are the benefits? Number 1, and the most obvious, you get to learn about the system. Number 2, you are able to make connections. When you start applying for jobs in the NHS, there is a column called a reference column where you have to provide reference of people that you have worked under over the last 3 years. The consultant that you are working under can provide a reference for you, and this would be a reference from the NHS, which would be a huge plus in your CV. Number 4, you are able to make your portfolio. Now, what is a portfolio? Whenever you're trying to apply for a specialty or even just applying for a job in the NHS, they do ask you about certain things. They ask you if you've done any researches, any abstracts, you've got any teaching experience, any management or volunteer experience, any NGO work, just to see what kind of what kind of work do you do aside from study. If you start your attachment, go to your consultant, the one who's in charge, and let him know that you're interested in doing a clinical audit. That is number 1, where you can co-author the audit, where you'll have to design the audit, collect the data, and give the conclusion. Or the other method is, sometimes in the trust there are already audits which are ongoing, so you can participate in those audits as well. So that is something you want to do. You want to make your portfolio. I would recommend you must try and get into an audit during your attachment itself. Another obvious benefit is, if there is an opening for a job in the trust where you're doing an attachment, you will be the likely candidate as you worked in that trust, you made connections, you know the system there. What should you do during your attachment? As I've said, you must try and do or participate in an audit during your attachment itself. Number 2, you want to make sure you do a presentation of any kind of case that you've seen or any kind of topic that you're interested in. Let's say you're interested in psychiatry, then you could do a case face presentation, number one, or you could just do a presentation on psychosis. What is psychosis? How do you recognize it? What is the diagnostic method? And a presentation on that topic itself. And you can ask your trust to give you a certificate for that, which will help you when you are on the lookout for your job. A lot of these trusts have some courses going on from time to time. For example, in my attachment, my trust had a course which is how to manage trauma, which was mainly for the A&E doctors working there, but I did participate in it, and you can too. So make sure when you are doing attachment, you look around for any courses that are happening. What are the types of attachments available? Two types of attachment. They can either be paid clinical attachments or unpaid clinical attachments. What is a paid clinical attachment? A paid clinical attachment is where you pay the trust a certain amount of money for you to get that attachment. And the unpaid one, which is the ones I got, is that the attachment is absolutely free of cost and you do not have to pay the trust anything, and you are able to gain experience without spending any money out of your pocket. Accommodation during your clinical attachment. A lot of times these hospitals and these trusts do offer you accommodation in the form of hospital accommodation, which is a very convenient option as it is comparatively cheaper. It is really close to the hospital, so you don't have to spend a lot of money going and coming from the hospital. And as during winters the UK can get dark around 4 to 5, so your attachment will normally go from 9 to 5. So when you come back at 5, it will be comparatively dark, so a hospital accommodation is easier because you don't have to travel much in the day. If your trust is not offering you hospital accommodation, that is all right. You can look for accommodation either on spare room or on Airbnb, which is the preferred options, and you will be able to get one within your budget. On average, these accommodations can cost somewhere from 350 to 750 pounds if you are booking them by Airbnb or spare room, depending on what kind of room you're taking, how far it is away from the city center, and is your washroom shared or not. How to save money during your attachment. Sometimes, though your attachment is unpaid, it can take a lot of money because you have to pay for your rent, you have to pay for your travel, you have to pay for your groceries. So what is the preferred method of saving money during your attachment? Number one, when you are doing attachment, your trust will give you an NHS card, which will state that you are working, that you are doing your clinical attachment in the NHS in this particular trust. So that NHS card works on a lot of places, stores like Starbucks, Nando's, all of them will give you a discount ranging from 10% to 20%. So make sure you show your card and get that discount. Number two, if you are staying in the UK for a long time, you want to get the blue light saving card, which is another card that you can get by your clinical attachment card, which will also give you 20% discount on even grocery stores like Asda. So you want to get that as well. The number third method of saving money is taking a bus pass. A bus pass can help you transport from, let's say I stay in place A and my hospital is in B, and every day the bus ticket is £2 going and coming. So that's £4 per day. And if you go 25 days in a month, that is something like £100. So a lot of these places offer bus passes, which ranges around 55 to 60 pounds a month, which offers you unlimited travel wherever you want in that particular area. You can either climb aboard the bus and ask about it, or go to your nearest bus stand and ask about it, or you can even look online for your area's city bus pass. Is a clinical attachment necessary? It is not necessary. You only do a clinical attachment if you have the money and the time for it. If you do not have the money and do not have the time, it is okay. You do not need to do it. You can easily get a job without it as well. Just make sure that you've got a good portfolio, you've got things on your CV, you've got experience, and that should work as well. However, if you are getting an unpaid clinical attachment, you have the resources and you have the money, I would recommend getting one. So I would recommend that you go and look for courses, do audits, do presentations, take all the resources that are being handed over to you and use them correctly. And yeah, and that's about it. If you have any questions, you can easily and always contact me on my Instagram. The link is in the bio below, or you can just DM me on Instagram and I will get back to you as well. And yes, I have made a few PDFs which you can find on my Insta. Some of them are comparing the US Emily journey with Plab. Then there's a PDF talking about the Plab visitor visa, how to get a clinical attachment, what is the email format to get a clinical attachment, and you can get all of those from my link in my bio on my Instagram. So make sure you check that out. Okay, have a nice day.